Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Kiki Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to go over Disney's latest earnings report. She knows more about what happened with that because I am completely checked out.
It was very short.
It was a very short, very stubby, very small. It was a very small earnings call. Yeah, it seemed like there wasn't a lot of...
When his winky has to grow back.
So we're gonna talk about this because it does seem to be a little bit of sleight of hand from what I've seen, and apparently Bob Iger even had a hot mic moment where he was.
Oh yeah, you said I didn't. He said I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, he was talking about the numbers I think for streaming, and they're like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, small."
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. He's taking a victory lap, and the media's like, "Oh, high-fiving him and clapping and everything else," and I'm just like sitting here like, "But a lot of this stuff, it wasn't you."
Yeah,
you're taking credit for stuff that wasn't you.
So let's break this down. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
All right, so tell me what's going on with the dinky Disney earnings report.
Well, it's actually in the fact it's not dinky, in the fact that it was like one of their strongest upswings in a long time. It was like 30-some%, 39%. From last year. So it was one of their biggest quarterly reports, as far as improvement is concerned. They said the total revenue for the quarter reached $22.6 billion, which is a 6% increase from last year. Net income soared to $460 million, up from $264 million, which is a huge, that's a huge amount of money. It's almost like $200 million. It's like almost double. A big deal. So then they went on about how, the entertainment division and basically what it's did so well was because of Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. And they were talking about, Disney and Hulu saw $253 million in operating profit. They're going to put a tab on of ESPN on Disney Plus also. They're talking about how it's doing better. They're
going to consolidate it at some point. It's all going to be Disney Plus.
I wonder who said that was going to happen. You said you thought they were going to put it all on Hulu, but it ended up they're putting everything on Disney Plus. But the same idea.
Yeah, same with like Crunchyroll and Funimation and all that. It's like we knew eventually that they would merge, but yeah.
Yeah, they're saying Disney Parks and Experiences remains a core strength, posting a record $8.24 billion revenue for Q4. Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. You kept raising the price of Lightning Lane. And then you got rid of the DAS passes, forcing people that are disabled to buy Lightning Lane. That was your answer for everything. Buy Lightning Lane, to upcharge the disabled people to raise your profits. It's because you keep raising prices, and then you're like, oh, look, we're record profits, but that doesn't mean record attendance.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see that. We're going to see that take a hit, too. I know he was out there saying that he thought that Disney was going to see an improvement because of Epic Universe. I'm like, no, because they're trying to lock people into like a week-long vacation, aren't they? At Epic Universe, multi-day.
Yeah, Epic Universe, you have to buy like at least a 3-day, but you're only allowed 1 day at Epic Universe. You have to buy a multi-day pass, but you're allowed 1 day.
Right, which isn't enough to see everything in that park anyway, I don't think, because the lines are going to be long.
No, I don't think so. It's going to take multiple trips to see that, yeah.
People are going to stay at Universal. They're not.
Yeah,
they might.
We've recommended to people before.
I mean, they might go to Disney for a day, but it's like the ticket prices are so expensive. I don't think it's going to be the boost that he thinks. I mean, I could be wrong, but and some people might be holding off on going to Disney. But I think people are going to go specifically for Epic Universe. They're going to stay at Universal for the week. They're going to see how much cheaper it is. Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, yeah, maybe we should just come down here every year and not go to Disney. I don't know.
I don't think they're going to do that. But, they might say Epic Universe, which I've recommended in the past. You've recommended in the past anyway, because hotels can be better.
Yeah, Universal's hotel prices, like we got a suite. I mean, this was during the pandemic, but like we got a beautiful suite at the Endless Summer Resort, and it was $120 a night or something.
It was ridiculous. It was nicer than some of the Disney moderates, and then
it was nicer than the Contemporary. We were at the Contemporary for a couple days before we went over to Universal, and I was like, man, the Contemporary, it was like what, $300 a night, $400 a night. It was on sale.
It was way overpriced,
but it was like very dated, very 70s. It smelled like old Holiday Inn when you go in there.
Looked like old Holiday Inn when you went in there too. So yeah, so that was what was going on there. They're like touting him like, oh, good job, Bob.
Good job,
amazing.
Bob.
You're so amazing. Except Bob Iger isn't responsible for a lot of this stuff. Okay, he's responsible for a lot more bad things. But so Deadline posted this thing, and they're talking about Bob Iger and how he's taking a victory lap. And they said, in executive commentary around the numbers this morning, Iger and CFO Hugh Johnson cited renewed creative strength as a result of the extensive work we began 2 years ago to restore creativity to the center of the company. the same creativity that you fired. Iger rejoined the company as chief executive almost exactly 2 years ago, replacing Bob Chapek. So the implication is 2 years ago, he started giving creative responsibility back to who it belonged to, which, I don't disagree with. But he came back about 2 years ago, and that's when things changed. Not really. A lot of things that did really well that he's taking credit for were not him.
Yeah, it's kind of like, they were blaming Chapek for a lot of Bob Iger's decisions, and now Iger seems to be taking credit for Chapek's decisions, the good ones, right?
Well, yeah, because they're talking about the big jump, and they're mostly crediting the movies. Because last year, you remember how shit. It's a huge jump from last year, because last year all the movies were pretty much failing. Yeah. So Inside Out 2 began production in 2020. Yeah. The hiring and key work were made when Bob Chapek was CEO. Bob Iger comes back, right? And then a month before Inside Out 2 gets released, he guts Pixar. When Bob Iger came back, hey, if you remember, Bob Chapek said they were going to have to look into doing some layoffs because the company couldn't afford it. Bob Iger came back, and the thought was, oh, yay, we're saved. Bob Iger's back, so we're not going to get fired. Then Bob Iger waited until the proxy battle started and then realized he had to do something, so he promised a bunch of cuts. And then they all got fired anyway. And apparently the people at Pixar were complaining that ahead of Inside Out 2, the crunch was ridiculous. The amount of work they were being demanded to get done, the conditions were not good. They did all this stuff, got it completed, all under the threat of having cuts. As soon as it got done, they cut everybody. And they basically told the ones that got cut, you don't get a bonus if it does well.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty shitty. I mean, I'm going to be honest.
That was Iger.
They saved a lot. They made a lot of profit on Inside Out 2, but it came at the cost of them gutting staff.
Right. And they and under Iger, they were telling, they're all touting Iger, yeah, you're the win. But under Iger, they were told to make the characters less gay, which I think was the right thing to do. But these people that are all kissing Iger's ass, it's like he's the one who chose to do that.
He's trying to go out on a high note, I think, if he actually leaves. No,
he's going to be forced to leave. There's no way he's not going to be able to. So that was Inside Out, Inside Out 2, and it did do very, very well. Yeah. But Iger wasn't behind that. And when Iger did come in, he was the one that chose to cut things, which worked to its advantage. I'm not going to say it didn't. He was right to cut that. But the people that are touting him as the second coming is, he's the one who decided to change that. Then they're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine kicked massive ass. But make no mistake, it was not Disney that made Deadpool and Wolverine what it was. It was Ryan Reynolds, Sean Levy, Hugh Jackman, etc. They were the ones who made the movie what it was. It was not Disney.
My understanding is they had to push back against Disney trying to put stupid shit into Deadpool and Wolverine.
That was, She-Hulk and trying to tie it into the Marvels and all that stuff too. And when they bought Fox, it was already greenlit. Deadpool 3 was already greenlit when they bought Fox. So it was already on its way. When Disney took over, a lot of the work that got done, a lot of the hiring, a lot of the writers, a lot of the stuff that got, decided upon, including Hugh Jackman's involvement, came under Bob Chapek. A lot of that was announced and put together under him being CEO. Now, look, I don't think Bob Chapek was the best CEO ever. I just think it's shit that everybody keeps kissing Iger's ass when Iger has done plenty to ruin the Disney company.
Oh, God. He's actually been the main reason the company has become just an IP farm and not a creative company anymore. Mm-hmm.
So Deadpool and Wolverine did fantastic, but that credit does not belong to Disney at all. Disney has not had, and if it has any credit to be people at Disney, it would be under Chapek, because he's the one that put the teams together, and it was under him that they did that, and they got Hugh Jackman back and everything else. He had been the one approving all that stuff. Moana 2, they're talking about all this stuff coming out. Moana 2 was also greenlit under Bob Chapek because it was going to be a Disney Plus show. So it was late 2020 that it was greenlit. It was supposedly that Jennifer Lee said that there was going to be a musical comedy series called Moana the Series, and he greenlit the series. Yeah. Now, Iger is responsible for taking that and turning it into a film, which I do think was a really, really smart move. I think that, I'll give him credit for that because that was brilliant to do that. But he wasn't responsible for the stuff that they got to make this movie. That was under Chapek.
Yeah. Because it takes years. I mean, people don't realize just because something comes out a year or two after you hear about it doesn't mean it wasn't in development for years leading up to that.
Yeah, Mufasa Lion King also, that was under Chapek. Captain America Brave New World, which I wouldn't brag about this, but that was a lot of it under Chapek. and it goes on and on. And we know that now, back to Bob Iger, we know that he deliberately was out there actively tanking the Disney company.
Yes.
Because he didn't like that Chapek took over. His ego was more important to him than the Walt Disney Company. Meanwhile, Bob Chapek has had lawyers approach him about going after Disney for what happened based on all the reports that have come out since. And he said he won't do that because his family's a Disney family and they don't want to drag the company through the mud. One of them is more responsible than the other. So, Chapek was thrown in as CEO ahead of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, we've done many, many videos on the reports of what happened. Iger was mad because he didn't do what he wanted him to do. Iger did a lot of things, underhanded things to make sure he regained control, which was really weird that Chapek had to report to him.
Yes.
He, when there were issues, he was deliberately not helping Chapek so that the issues got, exacerbated, and it was, problems like the Scarlett Johansson thing and all that. And then he sat back and let him basically fail and let the company fail so that, because he was mad because of his ego.
Yeah, I mean, that whole situation, that's going to go down in the history books as being just a legendary WTF in management. Like, what not to do. I mean, it's such a high-profile cat fight, basically.
Basically. And then, he was on the TV even after he was gone, with the parental rights education bill, throwing Chapek under the bus and saying that, a real company would take sides. Because Bob Iger was constantly taking political sides. Mm-hmm. And that's why people assumed that the Disney company would just, take their side because Iger always did. Iger had a political bent. Everybody joked he was trying to be an ambassador to China or UK. Yeah. Everybody knew this. He wanted to run for president. Everybody knew this. Mm-hmm. So, of course, he was doing stuff. After Chapek's gone, Iger got us into the proxy battles. The last one, how much did Disney spend on their websites and, all the materials they were sending out constantly?
Oh, yeah, it was a ton of money because we were getting those. We're getting, cards in the mail, and they had a whole website and everything. And now it's turning out, just a side note, because we're not going to do a separate video on it, but it turns out that Nelson Peltz was actually behind
you were talking
Musk
about
and
that.
Trump getting together. And so this whole thing is starting to come together. So I think Peltz has actually been kind of the Phantom Menace.
It's kind of funny. But he got us into two proxy battles. He got out of the first one because he's like, I'm going to make cuts, which made people at the company mad. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, it ended up being a full-on battle, and, they won, but they had to spend a lot of money to do so. Last year's film slate was absolutely terrible. A lot of those movies, not all of them, but a lot of them were greenlit under Iger.
Yeah.
Chapek had a hand in some of them, but most of them were under him. We have the whole mismanagement of Star Wars and Marvel and where it's at now. The Disney sequel trilogy was Iger.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everything that Chapek got blamed for, most of it, was Bob Iger, because again, it takes a couple of years for stuff to work its way through the system, and a lot of the bonehead decisions were Iger. I mean, Iger was there, save for 2 years? Chapek was there for 2 years, 2.5 years?
He was there about 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's not enough time to completely F up the company. He's just, he was dealing with the shit that was rolling downhill from Bob Iger and his spending spree. He
was in the parks, and he did his own fair share of stupidity, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but he was probably carrying out marching orders, because we know how Bob Iger thinks. He's probably carrying out orders, because Genie Plus, that was his, and the taking the parking away and all this other little nickel and dime shit. The cabanas in Tomorrowland, the
$700 some cabanas,
$700
like $1,500 by now if they tried it.
Private cabanas and chasing whales, because that's what he wanted. He wanted to get more money out of every user, every person that went to the park.
Oh, and then another thing I want to point out, a couple more things. Bob Iger is the one who got into the legal battle with DeSantis over Reedy Creek, because they thought that they were going to be smarter than everybody else and did that, that 11th hour bullshit where they tried to stick stuff in there that worded verbiage that gave them power, that the new improvement district could pay for everything, but they would still get all the power and all this underhanded bullshit. And then it turned out that their own lawyers are writing the stuff, which it shouldn't have been, because they're supposed to be separate entities, but everybody knew that it was a running joke. They weren't. Mm-hmm. And all this other crap, which ended up in a lawsuit, which there was a settlement, but basically, Disney got their butts kicked.
Yeah.
And they wasted how much money for a year on that one. And then Iger's now pushing the AI stuff, having a whole new division created, because he personally has, vested interest in Canva and AI stuff. There's just thing after thing after thing here going on. And a lot of the issues leading up to this quarter, Iger created himself, and then the things that saved this quarter weren't him.
Yeah.
I mean, he did say don't put the gay stuff in Inside Out 2, which implies that there was going to be gay stuff Inside Out 2.
Make it less gay.
Which was smart.
Yeah, well, for families right now in this climate, because
in this climate, yes.
Yeah.
And it was smart to do that, but he didn't greenlight it, and that's just it. They're all like, Iger's taking a victory lap, go him. It's like he doesn't take responsibility for things he did do, even though he claims he does. And he takes credit for things that he didn't do. And it's like, this is the most, Iger shit ever. And everybody's just like, oh, it's the second coming of Iger. And Iger's the one who overspent on Fox. They put the company in a perilous position come, the pandemic, which of course he didn't see coming. But, I'm just like, he's made a lot of decisions. He's overspent. And then when he bought Marvel and Star Wars, it's in the gutter now from choices that were made. And it's like, but they're all like, yay, it's Iger's a genius. And I'm like, not really.
A lot of the very unpopular, decisions in the theme park. Those are Iger because he wants to shove more IP into everything.
Yeah, I mean, Chapek was involved in a lot of that stuff too. But yeah, it's a lot of it's Iger, especially recently.
Yeah.
Getting rid of, the Rivers of America. DeMauro can't do that unless Iger agrees to it. You know what I mean?
don't think DeMauro's on board with it because DeMauro actually seems to love the parks. He seems to have that nostalgia for the parks, but he's carrying out marching orders. I think if he were in charge, I don't think that would have happened because he does seem to be a Waltist, if that's a thing. Like he seems to always reference Walt Disney and classic attractions and the history of the theme parks. And Iger doesn't give a shit.
Well, GD Plus, I mean, when it was initially announced, it was Chapek who announced it because he was in charge of parks, but that was under Iger. And since then, when Iger has returned, that's when we saw the prices skyrocket. That's when we saw the DAS pass get eliminated. That's when we saw these new up to $500 or whatever it is a day per person to get unlimited, or you get one time on each ride. You don't have to use Lightning Lane, but you get Lightning Lane in this purchase deal. All of those upcharges and expensive things, that was all under Iger.
Yeah.
He's just, as far as the company's concerned, yes, it was a huge turnaround this quarter. And I'm not saying it wasn't, because it was. But a lot of the things he's taking credit for weren't even him. But a lot of the things that led to it being a huge, turnaround was the gouging of customers. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at it fairly, it's not the win they think it is. Now, they keep insisting there will be a new CEO by the time he's done. There needs to be a new CEO by the time he's done. And hopefully they can find a good one that we can, recover from some of this stuff. Because, at the end of the day, I would like to see Disney return to what it was. I don't know if it's gonna.
I don't think it's going to. If they put in the guy from EA, that's it. If
they focus on video games, it's going to be screwed because they had all kinds of money. Dumping all that money into Fortnite, Iger.
Yeah.
Pay their fellow kids, the Taylor Swift stuff, all the money Taylor Swift, Iger.
Yeah.
He's just throwing spaghetti at this point, and it's just it's so obvious.
He doesn't have the creativity, and I don't think the guy that they hired to replace him is going to have the creativity that obviously that Walt had, and even Michael Eisner. Eisner had his faults for sure, but he was able to straddle the creative with the financial side of things. And
Iger's right to give creative control back to the people that should have creative control. But when they did that before, that's how we ended up with Lightyear and all this other stuff too.
Yeah, that's
so
I think
he's very left.
I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this last night actually because I was like, man, they bring the guy in from EA. And that's going to be the kiss of death because we saw what happened with Hasbro.
Well, he's one of several candidates.
Well, he seems to be the one that keeps coming up the most. I'm like, hell no. But the shareholders are going to like it because they're going to be like, oh, he's making record profits. And that's all they give a shit about. Honestly, Disney, I think, would be best served having co-CEOs like they did, kind of like with Walt and Roy. Like, I think you need
one's creative, one's money.
Right. And I think you need that. You need hire DeMauro to oversee the creative side of things, and then hire somebody who's really good with finance to run the bit to basically make it happen. You need a dreamer and a doer,
and they have to work together.
To
do it because that makes sense. Because Disney has gotten to be too big.
Yes,
I think for one person to run it because it's not like it's where it used to be like one thing or two things like would do the movies, the shows, and then the theme parks. Now it's just expanded into such a huge thing that maybe it does require more than one person to oversee it.
Yeah, because again, Iger does not have a creative bone in his body, but he is good at negotiating.
Neither did JPEG, to be fair.
Yeah, right. But I think we need somebody who has that creative spark. But like I would say, put somebody like John Lasseter in. Oh no, we can't talk about him. But he would have been fantastic as the head of creativity for the company. I think he would have been really, really good. And he's actually got that kind of that spark that Walt had. But again, Walt had Roy to balance him out. If Walt had it his way, the company would have gone bankrupt 9 times out of 10, because he's just like, let's just spend as much money as possible to make the coolest stuff possible. And Roy's like, no, Walt, we can't do that. And
then you throw in Iger and the stories that were coming out that all he cared about was that he was afraid if he was not going to be CEO again, he wasn't going to get the best tables at the restaurants and people aren't going to kiss his ass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was what he was worried about?
Yeah, he definitely does not have the heart of Walt, because Walt didn't give a shit about that kind of stuff.
I mean, this is what I came up with. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to, but I just think it's funny because a lot of things that have come to pass this quarter that has boosted the company weren't even things that he initially, was in charge of. And some of the choices that were made were under other people. And then he's sitting there like, and aren't even credited. I wouldn't even credit Disney at all with a lot of it. And then he's like, patting himself on the back, go me. 2 years later, guys, we're on top again. It's me. And it's like, not really.
Yeah, weirdly, as we're talking about this, I just got a notification that Bob Iger is selling $41 million of his stock.
Oh, really?
So
wait. Stock goes up over these announcements, and then he hurries up and turns around and cashes out.
He's cashing out. Yeah, because he must think to himself, it's not going to go any higher.
That doesn't look good.
That's not a good sign.
No, that's not.
I literally just got it as we're recording this. Yeah, he's going to sell up to $41 million of his stock. So that's not a good sign. So he must think that this is it, man. I'm cashing in my chips.
Either he overpaid for the sports team and he's trying to make money back. I don't know.
Who knows?
But I'm like, Iger, who also thought Funko was the best investment ever.
Funko, NFTs, all those other
he went all in on
dumb
NFTs.
shitties.
Now he's in Canva.
Yep.
Anyway, so we're going to wrap this up.
We're wrapping it up, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.
Join the reef. Go to clownfishminus.com. That's clownfishminus.com. You will get exclusive access to podcasts and videos and comic strips and more, as well as merch discounts. Check it out. If you were a member, you could get this t-shirt, this dismal t-shirt, on our website. You'd get a 10% discount on that. You can also join in the community on clownfishminus.com. Thank you so much for the support.